Like, why do you want to be a Christian?
I
Like,
guess we'll start with Tim because
Why you gotta
everyone's
start with me?
scared.
Start with the youth.
Listen, you guys been ragging on me this whole time. Let me have
Yeah.
some peace.
It only makes sense to start with the pastor.
bro,
No,
I know. Go
save me
Timmy.
for last.
God kind of really gives me perspective. Before I kind of like started coming around, I had like no perspective. Like something unfortunate happens to me, you know, and I'm like, dang, bro, like you have nowhere to run. Rather than when something unfortunate happens to me now, I'm like, oh God, you're refining me through this, you know, like yeah, it didn't go my way, but in all actualization, if everything went my way, then I wouldn't really need God, you know, I would be like a spoiled kid. And I think that's why parents don't spoil their kids, because they would act like if God were to give us everything we would want, we'd be like, okay, well then give me a Lamborghini tomorrow, and then it'll be like, give me this the next day, you know. And a little story of like before I had perspective in my life. Say like I go to school and, you know, like I failed my report card per usual. But I didn't really actually had decent grades. So like I failed my report card. Obviously you have that anxiety of going home, you know? You don't have that perspective like, okay, God, like you gave like, wait, God didn't give you the F, but you know, like I have an F, but you know, instead of being like, hey God, like what are you trying to teach me through this? Maybe like to have thicker skin, to keep my mind more sane and have my priorities straight, you know? Or even like things like that could even draw you closer to God by like being like, well, God, I don't want that belt later. Please like work something out. I'll read my Bible more and I'll do this. I didn't have God in my life around that time, so I kind of would just go home and just cry about it. I don't know. I just look myself in the mirror. You know, like when you're crying and you look yourself in the mirror and you're like, you start to cry more because you're like, dang, I feel for that guy. Like, that guy's down bad, you know? And you just start crying more. Nowadays, you know, something unfortunate happens, you know, there's always going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, you know? God's refining us in one way or another. And I think that's why I wake up every morning and choose God, you know, to give me perspective on the unfortunate events. You know, it's pretty easy to worship God when he gives you what you want. The reason why I personally choose him is because it gives you somewhere to run when things are unfortunate and when you're down bad, you know?
I've gone down the path where it's like, you didn't choose God, and how hard that is. And now that I choose God, I know exactly there's hope. There's actual, like, meaning behind life. And that's why I choose God, because I could wake up every day and say, God has a plan for me. When, like, back then, it was like...
You're kind of just drifting through life, you know?
Yeah.
You're just like you're just there.
NPC.
You're just a presence.
Yeah, you're an NPC.
An NPC.
You're an NPC.
Bro's a bot.
Before you choose Jesus, you're
Yeah.
an NPC.
When you really obey what it says in the Bible and like choose to be a light to others, like the blessing isn't just a blessing. Like I told you guys this earlier, like the blessing isn't just a blessing. Like the blessing could be to be a blessing, like to someone else. You
Dude,
know?
that's good.
What breaks God's heart sometimes actually really does break mine. Like I don't know, sometimes I just see people down bad and like sometimes my pride gets in the way or something. I'm like, well, what if I like go and tell them about like God, or like try to be a blessing and they don't really want it,